Welcome to Elevate Today podcast. I am with Keilani. We were, just planning to hang out, and we decided that we are going to do a podcast today. So welcome, Keilani.
Hi, Hannah. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. I think it's really cool that we're doing this because I really did want to record a podcast with you. And just the fact that we were already having those podcast kind of conversations like right now.
Yeah. I think we just needed to, we were already on a flow and we're like, let's just record it.
Yeah. And so I think what's really, really cool about you is you're someone that really inspires me, and you always have. And you have this, you have this way about you that you walk and live out a message, a mission of helping people. And it's like what you carry is something like, okay, people need to know what you know. People need to have what you have because like this podcast is all about helping people, elevating, like giving people solutions to this crazy life. So that's what I want to talk about with you is pretty much like practical solutions to real life struggles today. So let's get into it with first describing what is it that you carry that makes you so like set apart.
Okay, well, we were literally just talking about this, but it kind of just goes hand in hand with you are a mind, you have a body, and you have a soul. And literally, I think the best way to put it and what I've experienced and also what I've seen in other people's lives is to kind of go on about your day, you have to do something for yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually, whatever that may be. So you have to give yourself that daily dose of like those physical needs that your body is craving, whether it be through food or through an exercise or your body work. Like your body is craving it, so feed it. And then mentally, like you have to keep feeding your mind what you think is going to progress your life. So if you keep feeding yourself with things that are only going to trigger you, keep you feeling like depressed or just not anything that's going to help elevate you, you're just gonna stay the same. If not, you're gonna go in like a downward spiral. And then spiritually, I'm all about like holistically bettering your life. So you do have a soul, that's what I believe. And you do have a soul, and you have to nourish your soul and what you're doing. So just kind of like in a sense, the easiest way to explain it is protecting your peace. So whatever that means for you, tap into that. So
yeah, protecting your peace. That's a hard thing. How do you know what your peace is if someone's haven't really experienced that?
If you're so the opposite of peace is like anxiousness. So if you're constantly in a place of anxiousness and confusion, and you just have like a cloud over your head that's like deceptive, or you're just feeling always uneasy, that is not peaceful. And I'm a Christian, and there's like a verse in the Bible that basically says like there's a peace that surpasses all understanding. So when you kind of when you get a taste of that peace that literally surpasses all understanding, you never want to let that go. And I say that because a lot of people don't experience like a true peace because they're constantly in a place of like in a state of anxiousness. I'm not going to put that title of anxiety over you, but people are in states of anxiousness sometimes and confusion that and they let that control their lives and not allowing peace to control their lives. Letting that be their guide. So that's something that I had to learn, and also like it's also so liberating once you get to experience that.
So this is something that I personally struggle with when it comes to like finding your peace. But how can you prioritize peace and know that really productivity comes out of a place of peace when it feels like you can't be productive in peace? It's like you have to be calm, you have to be chill. Like what's the difference between that and like the anxiousness that comes with getting stuff done, getting work done? Like how can you balance the both if you want to be in a peaceful state but have stuff to do?
You got to give yourself grace. I think that's one thing, just giving yourself grace to just do things that you can control today. And there's a scripture in the Bible that literally says like, don't be anxious for tomorrow, because today there's already like troubles that you have to experience today, or that you have to take care of. And I'm paraphrasing, but it's in Matthew. But basically, like with that scripture, like in my life, I apply that to my life because we do get consumed with everyday things, and then when our mind starts to go everywhere thinking about things that we have to get done in 2 weeks, tomorrow, and whatnot, that just keeps piling on top of each other, and eventually you don't even get to do anything because you just feel stuck and so stressed. But then if you get to just focus on one thing at a time in your day, so just your daily tasks, your daily goals, like it can be as simple as making my bed. As soon as I make my bed, I'm gonna like block off a time just to be productive, and then putting in those breaks. So like I said, doing something for yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually, inserting in those breaks, like if from you doing like your work stuff, maybe right after your work stuff to get yourself, mentally reset, doing a workout. And then once you're done with your workout, maybe read a book to get you, stimulated again with your mind, and then go back into your work and being productive. Something like that, where you can make your schedule work for you and not against you.
Yeah.
So that's like one of the biggest things that I learned. And you just have to like know yourself well enough where how can I make this work for me, not against me? So
yeah. And that seems more sustainable. Like I think I noticed a pattern of I'll do a lot and then I'll hit a point of burnout and then I'll like crash for a day and then I'm like defeated and then I'm like, you know what, I gotta keep going, and then it's like a roller coaster. And I think that's because I don't prioritize my mental and maybe my spiritual, and so I just burn out of do when it's like you don't have to burn out. We actually weren't meant to do that. And even biblically, our DNA was created to have one day of rest.
Exactly.
And have one day or even moment throughout the day where you just like chill and like, okay, let me get things figured out. Let me tap into self and let me tap into spirit. And that's like a really important way to not burn out, because as soon as you burn out, you could even affect all of your hard work that you've been working on. But yeah, so clearly you're Christian. And I don't know, I think I'm really amazed with how you live out your faith. And as I've been able to connect with a lot more people and ask questions and just be able to hear out people's stories, especially those that are going to come on, and just getting a feel for what they want to talk about, it's like I'm realizing that there's not a lot of solutions out there. And I'm realizing as I hear these people's struggle, these people's pain, I'm like, okay, let's figure out this. There has to be more of a solution than jujitsu. But right now, because I'm on cloud 9 with it, I'm always like, you got to come to my gym. Like that'll keep you happy. But I'm like, there has to be so much more. And just like before you came here, we were talking about how like faith. Yeah. Like faith and the things that can keep you from your faith, or when God starts tugging at your heart, it's kind of crazy. Like there's this like a funky time behind it and you're like, oh my gosh, that was more than a coincidence. And that's happening right now. And so you being someone that is not out of touch with reality, like you've lived your life, you connect with a lot of people, you're involved in the church, you have experienced church hurt. What is your advice for someone that wants to get closer to God, but doesn't really know how to because of maybe things that they've seen or been through?
I would say, for one, like, I don't know, whatever it may be that you've experienced through people, just know that people are not perfect and God is. So if you want to get back into the church, or if you're new to like Christianity and finding your faith, seek God. Don't necessarily like look to people for answers. Look to God for those answers. And yeah, you can have people pour into you and give you a sort of like direction and insight, but don't allow imperfect people to tell you about a perfect God, and kind of put that on that pedestal, put them on a pedestal to be perfect. Because people, and we see this time and time again, like in media, like there's been documentaries from like Hillsong, like a really well-known church that we all listen to their music. They just came out with a very not confident, what is it, like a scandal, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, they just came out with a scandal, like a big documentary, and people are like turned away from church because of that. But there's what we were talking about earlier. There's a quote that's been going around in like the Christian TikTok community, and it's like, I know, if people is what is what made you turn away from the church, then that wasn't church. That was a sense of like just religion. But the beautiful thing about Christianity, it's a relationship. It's God wanting a relationship with you through Jesus Christ. And that kind of goes back to like what we were talking about earlier, like experiencing that perfect peace and that perfect love, or something that's like sustaining, and those higher solutions and finding a solution. It's because of my faith. Like I believe like that's Jesus and that relationship with God.
Yeah.
Because we can get all these external things, and like we can feel that temporary void of like that high and that fulfillment through good things like jiu-jitsu, a workout. Like those are amazing things that are going to fill us up. But there's also something more that's going to like last so much longer than just a 60-minute workout. And that thing is having that relationship with God. So yeah, I kind of like went on a tangent right there, but
no, that's awesome.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
And what about if, like, what does it mean to have a relationship with God?
Literally giving your heart to him. And for one, it's first and foremost like believing that Jesus died for your sins. You know, God sent his only son, Jesus, to die for your sins so we can have a relationship with God, because we are sinners. And because we're not perfect. So Jesus is that mediator for us. But it's literally giving your heart to God. And like if we feel anxious, like don't just tell that to like other people. Like give your heart, what you're feeling, to God. And I kind of literally learned that this past year, and just being like, instead of going to like someone just to vent and whatnot, I went to like God, the God that created me, who knows me in and out, and just gave him my heart, because he's the one that can only fill that void, or he can only fix that problem, is if I invite him into that space. So yeah.
And I think that's something that everyone has to do, no matter what background they came from, is like, okay, God, who is God to me? Who is Jesus to me? Like I was raised Christian, some were raised atheists, some were raised Buddhist, some were raised whatever way they were raised. Just disregard that for a little bit. Like step into nature, and if all you know is God is love, let your mind play with that for a little bit, and that God brings a peace that's surpasses all understanding. Like what can your own mind do with that information? Because I think that when it comes to faith and religion and church, it's like we have predicted things. Like, oh, if you believe in God, then you're never going to do this. You're never going to say this. You're a very good girl. You're kind of boring. You don't have much of a exciting life. Like it's those unfortunate stereotypes and things that we've both fell under in different parts of our lives. But it's like, God is a powerful source of it. He's an essence, an energy, a love source. And like when you can find your own way to describe an infinite God, it'll be more relational versus, oh, so-and-so told me this, and so this is what I kind of lean on. Like you have to use your own language to connect with God.
And that's the beautiful thing. I think what makes Christianity so different is if you talk to any Christian who actually walks the talks and talks the walk, I don't know if that made sense, but then you will realize, if you like talk to multiple Christians, they all have a different testimony, which I think is so beautiful. But you can't, my pastor said this, you can't question experience. Like if I experience something that is so radical and so crazy to like the human eye, but I know God did that for me because I've seen him move in my life, you can't question me. Like you can never take away my experience, which I think is so beautiful, because, and you don't need religion for that. That's just a relational thing. That's the fact that God was able to move in my life. It's because I allowed him to do so. I allowed him to do things in my life that, you know, like for example, me and Hannah were not college graduates. We're not in school. But there was a moment where God called me out to stop playing volleyball in college, brought me home, and I'm like working in these areas, like for example, Samsung headquarters. I'm working at the fitness industry, or working with like very like top tier athletes in the Bay Area. Outside looking in, people were like, you probably need a degree, right? But God literally put me in those spheres and put me in those areas where I'm not qualified to do so, but God qualified me. And that's just one instance where he moved in my life. And there's many more instances, but it's just one of those things where that's a testimony that that God did, not, you know, like that's an experience that I experienced that no one can take away from me, or even question. Like, that's all God.
And that's something that we don't see a lot of, or at least like it's rare that someone that you do this really well. You let God use your life, and you when you pray, like you're telling me, you're like, all right, God, what do you want to do with this? Like, give me a sign, help me figure this out. And like, you end up doing what you seem like you'd want to do, but it's because you let God move in your life, and he like opens these crazy opportunities because your heart posture is like open, you're down, you're ready. And that's something that people need to realize to do. Like, nothing in life can be put in a box, especially a relationship with God, because sky's the limit for you. Like, there's no limit for you, and everyone's max capacity is so different. And there's always this like fear to start, or fear to do like even the first step. But it's like, if you just go and just like, maybe I'm not super prepared, but do it, like let God help you, like tap into that source, and you'll realize that you're going to feel very underqualified, but look what you accomplished, you know?
Exactly.
And everyone's story is different if they were to just like start.
No, definitely. And it's like, that's just, my story is just one story out of millions and billions of people. Like, you have your own story in your walk that incorporates God and, you know, moving in your life, that like, that no one can ever take away from you, because you've experienced that relationship with him and whatnot. Everyone has a different story, which I think is just so beautiful. Like, and what makes the non-believers kind of like gravitate towards that, it's like we're all so different, but yet everyone has a story for another person to relate to. That, okay, well, if God can do it for them, then he can definitely do that for me. That type of be like, if I'm probably gonna, you know, resonate more with people who dropped out of school and left their sport identity to go pursue what God has called them to do, because that's my story and whatnot. So that's gonna, so
sports identity is a real thing.
Oh, it's so real.
I did not have to struggle with that, but when I hear some people's like upbringing, I'm like, dang, you're more than that, you know?
Yeah, dude, it's not even talked about, and that's so funny, because I was talking to one of my friends about that, who was on a scholarship to play run D1 track at San Jose State, and her and I have like similar testimonies where God called us out to stop playing our sport and to pursue like ministry or to do other things that he called us to do. And it's one of those things that we talked about, like, it's such an identity crisis, because all you know for I don't know how many years of playing that specific sport or doing that sport, you've literally sacrificed your whole life, your whole social life for that sport, only for it to come at a stop when, you know, in high school or when you graduate from college or whenever you get injured, like, but that's all you know. And that people just tie their identity to that they don't know what to do with it afterwards. And it's one of those things where you are so much more than an athlete, and there's more inside of you than what you can do on the field or on a court or whatever. So
yeah, I know it does bring up the question, like, who are we? What are we? How are we more than our accomplishments? Because it seems like people are just kind of doing things to put it under their belt. Like, you know, a bunch of kids that I'm sure you know, that I know, or kids, people our age, are finishing college just because it's the only option that their parents gave them. Like, it's their debt to their parents. Yeah, like, oh my God, I'm so thankful that my parents weren't like enforcing that on me, because I'm like, college is not for me. Sorry, I'm too social. I'm go to every party. Yeah, like, I don't need to go to college. And that's my journey, because some people really need that degree to do what they want to do. But it's like, people will literally do things to get the accomplishment, to be someone that they're not, or to have, like, to hide behind this title. But like, what are our other options of who we can be? Exactly. It's so much more than what you've accomplished and what you've attained. And those are great, because it shows your hard work, your steadfastness. It should show your dreams and your passions, but you are so much more than your accomplishments. And I think it's hard to understand the other things that can be replaced as accomplishments, but that's just not what our identity is.
Exactly. And like going into that like experience, you know, I feel like that ties into like you're so much more than your accomplishments, but to kind of like shift your mindset, not on your accomplishments but on your experiences. Like if you are playing that sport or whatever you're doing, like you're in college, change your mindset to be like, what am I experiencing right now? Like how can I make the most out of this and not just stress myself too much about like I have to get this degree. You might not even use that degree.
Yeah.
But like what you're experiencing during college, like with your peers or whatever, that's far more important than just what you're gonna get at the end of the day. And whatnot, because those experiences what's ultimately gonna set you up for that post-grad life and those life experiences.
Yeah,
so
that's super true.
Yeah, that's just Hannah's and I's take on
because it's rare to just not go to college. I mean, it's actually more common. It's more common now. People are talking about it. There's even books on it, especially because the options out there are endless. But you and I are great testimonies of like, when I made that decision, I remember my mom being like, Hannah, you know, like when your friends are at school, when they're graduating, you can't have those like regrets and those bad feelings. Like you have to be certain of yourself. And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty certain. I don't think it's for me. And sure enough, like I haven't had regret. In fact, especially with like the freaking pandemic, I would have been pissed if I was 2 years in and they were like, you're done now, gotta go home, like study on your computer. I'm like, heck no.
Yeah.
And that would have sucked to invest 2 years just to not be able to live out that experience. But like, I think what we can both know is everyone's journey is different. You do not need to go to college, but what you do need is the ability to work hard and have ambition and certainty to go after something else. Because like the reason why college is nice is because it gives you direction. It shows you the options you have. It exposes you to people. And then you learn social psychology. You get to meet people that could provide opportunities. You get to take different classes that might make you switch up your degree. That's valuable.
That is
but
valuable.
It's really just doing something.
Yeah.
And being productive and ambitious. Because
process.
Yeah, like who pays for that debt?
We don't have to go into that.
Oh gosh. I didn't know that was personal.
Oh no, it's okay.
Yeah, like that blows my mind. And like since I was homeschooled too, there's certain things where as I learned them like a little bit later, I was like, dang, you guys are in that much debt from college and you have no plan to pay it off. That's just foreign to me. Like I don't get why that's how that could be normal.
And it's so like widespread across the nation. Like that's just a normal process that we are so indoctrinated to like, you know, tap into.
Yeah. And like I think that that's something that's happening right now in society, is everything that is being told as normal, as what we should do, as like listening to instructions by the government or by the news. It's like everyone's realizing, oh, they're wrong.
Yeah.
Especially morally, because like we see that with college. You and I are testimonies of that.
Yep.
We even see that with faith, because schools, like they're not allowed to have faith taught at schools. And so now we're seeing like the ripple effect in society and people's morals, how no one has morals anymore. And to have a moral is almost like judgmental. Or just like, oh, why are you so stiff like that? But it's like morals are what keeps us safe and strong and insane and secure and certain. But society's, it's taking a turn. It can go either direction at this point.
Yeah, no, totally. And like as you were talking, it reminded me of this one lady that I found. There's like a video or podcast about it, but she was saying like the school system is like failing us in terms of like think about it. Even when we were in elementary school or something, you're taught not to never make a mistake. You're taught to always like follow the instructions, but if you don't do it this one way, then like it's the wrong way. You know what I mean? So just like those little tiny things that were kind of indoctrinated into us, which is like so simple, right?
Yeah.
But it just shows you like, for example, we can't make a mistake. Well, that puts pressure on us like as adults, like we can never make a mistake.
Yep.
There can never be change, right? And that just translates over to like everyday regular life. Like we can never make a mistake in what we're doing, but if anything, like mistakes are okay. Like that's how you grow. That's totally fine, right? But it's just crazy how like those little things can like translate over when you're an adult.
Yeah.
Stemming from like literally elementary school, and imagine like the societal things that they're putting in now into the education system.
Exactly.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. Like, it's so true. And growing up, I would always just kind of be like, why me? Like, how am I the one that's homeschooled? You know, I'd meet people and they get to spend the whole day with their friends and doing different things. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm going to homeschool my kids. I'm going to homeschool anyone's kids. I'll start a homeschooling school because.
Oh, that's, okay, Hannah.
Yeah.
Love that. Okay.
Yeah, I honestly think it's just going to happen.
Vision board.
A teacher, a bunch of homeschooler kids, a bunch of nerds, like how I was. But it's true, because everything the education system teaches is raising you to be like a really good employee, and versus like a good leader, a good entrepreneur, a good creator.
Yeah.
And like that creativity isn't really encouraged because it's so open-ended. And so I understand that, like, there has to be a right answer, or you have to figure it out on your own. But now it's like there's so many like creative ways to do something. Collaboration is a solution. That's not cheating. That's called collaborating. And that's something we should all be doing.
Networking.
Yeah, networking. Like, imagine our kids if they're homeschooled together and they're like, you know, past the school hours just painting or creative writing or having like a project. You know, we talk about the significance of a project, and their heart's just like, I'm so excited, I want to go do this, and I want this to happen, I want to bring these two things together, because like the child's mind is so expansive, we can't put it in a box. And that's why, like, children, they need to have just education, and school shouldn't be a 8 to 5 thing. It should just be like you're learning and it doesn't stop. You go to the park, you see this leaf, let's go find the name and draw it. That's what homeschooling was like for me, and it's so healthy for the brain. And then you realize that life is so much more than like these yes or no predictable journey.
Yeah, totally. Oh, that's so good. Jeez.
Yeah, it's what's needed, because it seems like right now a lot of people are hurting. Like, society is just struggling. And that's why it's so important to have the conversation of faith, because people need hope right now more than ever.
Exactly. And that's tying in, like, talking about faith and whatnot, like, it gives us something to hope for. Like, if even that's the whole thing about faith, it's the unseen, it's the unknown. But if you tap into that, you know, God as your source and whatever, he will give you a vision and give you a hope for the plans of the future. You know, like, he will give you something to look forward to if your hope's in him, if you live your life by him and through him. Because as there's chaos all around us and it seems like the world's ending, like, if you look at Christians, like, you see them so happy and joyful, it's because they have something to look forward to, because they know that their stuff, that the things that they're called to do here on earth is not over yet. And like, there is a message to be said, there is things to be done here on earth still. So no matter what you see on, like, you know, Instagram, whatever, there's still hope in this world. You know, there's still restoration to be done.
How do you develop hope?
Developing hope, it's one of those things where it takes faith. It takes faith, and it takes you to I think in a sense, like, posturing your heart of like gratitude. I think that's like one way to get to hope, is having gratitude for what is and for what's going to be done, basically. And having, like, posturing your heart in that sense of thanksgiving and gratitude gives you in a sense of hope. It's just kind of like a ripple effect that comes after that, because you're just already thankful for what is already done and what is, basically.
Yeah,
that it gives you something to hope for, because you're waiting for the next thank you, you know, something to be grateful for. So
that's really cool. That's what everyone needs right now.
Yeah.
And then 3 ways to develop faith.
3 ways to develop faith. I would, for one, just in a sense, like, remember, like, we're talking about Christianity, right? Like, faith. Yeah. I'm like, just making sure. One, just remember it's a relationship. So in doing so, like, reading the Bible, that's one way to develop your faith. 2, praying And praying, it doesn't have to be like a format. It's literally just having a conversation with God. So whatever conversation like we're having right now, you can literally say the same thing to God. If you're feeling stressed and anxious, give your heart, whatever you're feeling inside, to God, and just release it.
Yeah.
Let it go. But giving your heart, praying and worshiping, just, yeah, that's one. And then number 3, surrounding yourself with community that's going to edify your faith. So being around like other Christians or like-minded individuals, that's also going to help build your faith, because faith is the substance of things not yet seen. So if you're around, and they don't even have to be Christian, if you're around people who don't have a sense of vision or don't want to even grow their mind, or grow their future, they have lack of faith, because they don't want to even tap into the unseen yet. So who you're surrounding by is really going to help further your faith. Big time.
Yeah. So, yeah. And there's like a connection, because I told you I wasn't like super involved with my faith. I mean, pretty much I haven't been for a while. And then God's just kind of being crazy in my face kind of thing. But it's like the people that I'm surrounded by that are very ambitious, they all have a sense of faith. And I'm like the people that I intentionally will brainstorm with or talk ideas or talk about a vision, talk about the things not seen yet. As I like hear them out more and understand their story more, they all have faith in God. And I'm like, that's like, there has to be like a connection there. Like maybe you don't, pray every day, read the Bible, or go to church every Sunday, but it's like you have that inside of you. And having faith, again, can't be put in a box. If you don't go to church sometimes, or if you don't read the Bible, like you could still really know God, because that's like the irony. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, all right, I'm going to bring some people to church now, because like there's just too much irony in the fact that we all brainstorm together, we talk our visions and our plans and our dreams, and we believe in God. Then let's go tap into more people that vision plan, that have better plans for the future, because that's why we need to come together too. Like, I think that community is something very individual. That's how you stay strong in your faith. But once you get into community, you're around people that want to have the world the way God planned it to be, fruitful, healthy, families flourishing, like marriages staying wholesome, people not getting depressed, people not getting hopeless, and then put them all together, you'll get some solutions.
It's powerful, dude.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. And that's literally the one thing, like once you tap into your gifts and like what's inside of you, like that vision and dream that was planted inside of you that you're wanting to pursue, like that's not a coincidence. Like that's a God-given dream. It's not just like one day I'm gonna start a podcast, like that was planted inside of you long before you even knew that you wanted to do a podcast. So it's one of those things, like we all have different gifts and lanes, and once someone taps into that, you are in need for someone else's lack. So just like imagine if someone else like in community, they're not gifted in content creating, right? But they have a business that needs help with content creation. You can be that need to help supply their lack, and vice versa. If they're let's just say like an engineer, they can help engineer whatever you need. Like for example, like what we were talking about, like you selling CMOS and whatnot, like that would help my holistic part of like what I believe in. You selling your CMOS and bringing like the nourishing your body aspect of mind, body, and soul, like that's you filling a need in my vision and whatever, and vice versa. Like once you tap into that well of community and network that's founded on faith and big-minded things, unstoppable. Literally. You can't stop that.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's like indescribable, especially like the way it all comes together, because even you and I, like we didn't talk for like I don't know, a year or something, and then our worlds just collided, and now like we're gonna see each other weekly.
Now we're doing podcasts
and have like all these plans. But it's like sometimes it feels like God will have people out of your life and come back in when you're ready, or you just isolated for a certain season, and then when that time comes, just these weird connections where everyone's like for the same mission. And like my mission is just to help anyone that I can, like that's what feels right in my heart, is just when I hear someone's story, if there's solutions, like let's just figure it out together. And when it comes down to it, that's pretty much a lot of people's missions, like our circle, the people that we know. It's like we all need some sort of help in different areas, but the thing is we all have specialties. You know, like you specialize in the mind, in the soul, in faith, and being able to describe that in such an empowering way. And your niche is also fitness and body image, because we're female.
Yeah.
Women, for whatever reason, have terrible body issues. It's either like you're all about your image and you look so good all the time, or you're like in sweats in a sweatshirt, just like, I'm just here to get my pump in. And it's like you can, wow, I'm totally going off, but you can, you know, pull your shoulders back and just carry yourself well and not be so like and consumed with every freaking angle of your body, because God made you perfectly in whatever season of life you're in, as you're reaching your goals, as you hit your goals, as you're at the start of having a goal. Like, you can look at the mirror and love yourself. And that's what you specialize in. And that's why it's like, I'm all for promoting any kind of way that can get out, because all women kind of struggle with that, you know.
Totally.
I struggle with that like all the time, and I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Well, honestly, bro, when you were speaking, I was like, my mind was rolling right now. I was like, oh my gosh. Because it's normal. I think women struggling with body image is a natural human feeling that kind of stems inside of us, because hormonally we are allowed and supposed to like go through those cycles. When we're in a certain phase of our like cycle, in our monthly cycle, we feel certain types of way because our hormones are imbalanced. Yeah. And it gives yourself a grace once you kind of understand that concept. Be like, okay, like I'm allowed to feel these feelings, but don't let it consume you. Yeah. And just be like, this feeling is temporary, because next week I'm gonna feel the best, right? So it's kind of just like giving yourself grace when you feel like discussing in those moments, because literally it's because you're in that stage, in that phase of that, you know, your monthly cycle where your hormones are making you feel that way.
It was crazy.
And the way to combat that is, you know, giving yourself foods that are going to give you that like extra dose of like those feel good, you know, feelings, or, you know, working out where it's gonna like give you those endorphins, right? So you can always combat it to help mask it, but give yourself that grace, you know, when you do feel those feelings, because it's natural. Yeah, it really is. Because if you think about it, like every woman goes through that timely, and we're not, you know, insane for going through it. It's natural. It's literally biologically like it's happening within us. Yeah, that are making us feel this way. So
that's crazy. I've actually never heard of it connected to our cycles, but
now can you see it now?
Yes, like the cycle blows my mind. My goal right now is to have my cycle in sync with the moon.
Interesting.
Just so it's, you know, I get an idea. I'm like, oh, it's full moon about that time. But it is really crazy. Like, I think there's a lot more significance than just the nature of what it is. But like that window before you start, like, or whatever window it is, you're just like, oh, I don't like how I look. I don't like how I feel. Like, you're more angry. You're more hormonal. You don't feel good about your body, but you're also super hungry. And then you overeat, which enforces that. But you're right. If you understand the cycle, you can be like, okay, we're here now. If I know I'm going to feel this way, I'm going to just eat and look at my mirror and to be like, okay, you look good. You're beautiful. Stay strong in the mind, because that's all it is at the end of the day. A mind game.
It is.
And just like get through it. But yeah, so what is your opinion on like body image for like gym rats and stuff like that?
Honestly, I think like what's being portrayed is just a little bit more toxic now, in a sense. And like I said, like in the beginning of the podcast, like you got to nourish your mind, body, and soul. So I said this on a different podcast, but when you physically finally start to reach your goals and you don't handle like the issue that's happening internally and mentally, you will never feel satisfied about your body. Because once you reach that goal, you're like, okay, I can go more, right? But there's a little void inside of you, which is okay if you want to keep going more. But if you're going more because you don't feel okay in your body, I think that's a problem. And that's something that you have to feel like comfortable in, like whatever stage of like body image, you know, you're at, like aesthetically, like how you look. Yeah, you have to be okay with where you're at. Maybe not maybe, yes, have that mindset of like, I want to keep growing, I want to, you know, keep building or whatever. That's okay to have, like, that growing mindset's okay. But if you are just changing your body because you don't feel confident in your body, of how you look presently, I think that's an underlying issue of a mental issue. Not a mental issue, but you know what I mean, like there's something that's a void, you know, where you're like, there's a void of wanting more and there's a lack of. Yeah,
that's true. There should be, like, you know how there's personal trainers, they should be mental trainers at the gym that like will sit down with them and just be like, all right, so why are you here? Just like a personal trainer assessment. I'm here because of this. I just broke up with my boyfriend, so now I want to like get right in myself, you know, that kind of thing. All right, okay, so you should do like a 3 times a week. You should take this class. You should hit the weights this class and rest on these days. You know, like someone that can be mindful of certain patterns. Like, don't overdo it. Be mindful of where your headspace is. Because like, gym has always been therapy for me.
Totally.
And the days where I'm at the gym, I work out like 3 times a day, or I'm there like all day. People are like, dang, she's such a beast, like go her. And I'm just like dying inside. Yeah. Like my hardest days, like crying before I get in there, and then I'm in there and I'm just like happy on cloud 9. Those are the days where I'm really like hurting. But that's what I do to heal, and that's what I do to cope. But when do I deal with the root issue? Because I just ride those happy hormones after the workout. I'm like, I'm good. And then the cycle repeats.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think we've all been there, especially like for those crazy gym rats that are in the gym like 24/7. We're all struggling, because that's how we combat it, because we're just, you know, we're getting those endorphins and whatnot to combat those pains and issues that we don't want to face. And we have to get to the root of the issue, or we'll never heal. And there was a moment in my life where I literally would work out 3 times a day because I was so broken. I was hurting. And that's, if I started seeing my mind go elsewhere and kind of like in a sulking, like depresso mode, I would go to the gym. But it's just like, I'm just masking. That's a temporary fix for an issue that's going to be long lasting. Yeah. So we have to get to the root, or it's going to keep cycling.
So how do you get to the root?
You got to deal with it. You got to like
ask the questions. What's really going on?
What's really going on? You have to face it, face your issue, and kind of be at peace with it. Be like, why am I hurt so much? And it could be like, for me, it was a guy. Like, a guy hurt me so much that like I would work out, because every time I thought about him, I'm like, I don't want to think about him, so I'm just gonna go work out instead. But I had to like kind of face that issue of a guy that like hurt me, you know, like he broke my heart type of beat, you know. I had to like kind of come to peace that he's no longer in my life. Yeah. Like, and just kind of come to terms with it. You just kind of have to heal with that issue, and it could be anything for anyone, you know, but you just have to go to someone that you trust and just start that healing process, you know, because it's in your heart, right? And it's going to keep building until you let it go. Yeah. So
yeah, and it's crazy how everyone has a story like that. Like, because I love my gym and I'm there so much, but after talking to more people, I'm like, are you good? Because I know why I'm here that long, but why are you here this long? Or like, I was there with a friend on a Saturday morning, and I just stopped and I like asked him, like, you think everyone in here is okay? And he's like, why? I'm like, because it's Saturday at like 9:00 in the morning. Why are people here right now? Like, it's a weekend. But it's a beautiful place to be. Just like knowing how to get to the root of your own thoughts, and like you're saying, getting to the root, like how can you continue that process properly? Because I try to talk to people and get to their heart. And yeah, often it's relationships. Maybe it's something a dad said, maybe something discouraging that an ex said, or just like masking pain. But sometimes it's like, how do you know when the pain is so deep that you can't go through it by yourself, you know?
Yeah. And that's kind of like where you have to kind of just like, you want to have to make that decision. You know what I mean? Like, I want to experience peace in my life. Like, I don't want to live my life. You kind of have to come to that decision where I don't want to feel like this anymore. Like, I want to feel peace and joy as much as I can for the rest of my life. Yeah. But if you're harboring so much hate and unforgiveness in your heart, or just, not dealing with the hurt that you're feeling, then that's gonna like keep piling up and you're never gonna get to the root of that issue.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, since you're not dealing with it, another cycle's gonna come in because someone else is gonna hurt you, and it's just gonna keep building and building.
Yeah.
So it's part of that thing where, like I say, like alignment, like it's kind of starting to build that self-awareness, where as if you start to feel like you don't want to experience this hurt anymore, like you don't want to keep living your life angry, that decision that you made to start bettering your life is a decision you start to make to start healing for yourself and whatnot. But I think one way to kind of like help prevent that is starting to build out self-awareness. Like as soon as something triggers me, note it right then and there. Like if someone said something and it's triggering, why is it triggering me? And kind of like get to that root when it does happen, so you can kind of like get to the root of it.
Yeah.
And just start building your self-awareness for yourself, so you can constantly be aligned and in tune with what's going on. So yeah,
that's true. And like it's like really once you get through that self-awareness, then you can start thinking expansively, thinking about other people, different things to accomplish, but you have to be able to like stay there, get self-aware, and then even like with self-awareness is catching your own patterns. Like one maybe you just start talking smack about someone. Okay, why? What did they trigger that is an insecurity inside of you? Because often it's not something they did, it's something that it triggered inside of you. Everyone's just doing their own thing. Like all of a sudden you don't like this person, ask yourself why. Or you make a cynical comment, why? And I think those will come out without us realizing it. We'll just like, oh, no. Like that cynical tone. What is the truth behind that? Start asking yourself those kind of questions to find out what your soul is trying to scream. Like we all give signs that we need help, for ourselves. You can see it in other people. Like they're just screaming for someone to ask them, like look at their eyes and just say, are you okay? For them to say no. We're the same way. Like our body starts to tell signs. And even if you become in tune with your health will be like, oh yeah, you're not getting enough sleep. You're getting sick until you deal with it,
That's what I'm saying.
Stuff like that. And so just with your mental self-awareness, develop physical self-awareness, and then eventually to tap into that powerful source, become spiritual, develop spiritual awareness, and start to figure out, oh, I think God's trying to talk to me and get me involved in this and spark my heart for this purpose. But it won't happen if you don't know how to ask yourself the proper questions.
Exactly. I'm so glad you brought that up too, because that's like all of what I believe in. Like you have to be aligned and balanced in all those aspects, because once you start, like for example, if you just keep feeding your physical self but you're not feeding your mental self, you're gonna feel imbalanced. And that's why you keep going to the gym for that fix, instead of like nourishing your mind as well to keep it strong, where those things won't affect you. And even spiritually, like you're gonna feel so much more peace. But anyways, like tapping into those three things and growing in that awareness keeps you aligned with who you are. And as soon as something externally like triggers that, you easily will know like the root of the problem, or like where it came from and how to combat it and whatnot. You also physically know when things are not like right, like you said, your body will tell you. So your body will tell you if something's off spiritually or if something's off mentally, and vice versa. Like everything all works together in unison, and whatnot. So if your spiritual aspect is like imbalance because you're not nourishing it properly, you're going to see it externally, physically, or even mentally, because you're going to start doing things that are like out of nature for you. And same thing goes for like all the other aspects. They just all work together. So once you put that awareness, it's so easy to fix and kind of like realign yourself. Yeah.
Do you have things that you're working through right now that are your roots that you're like, oh, I caught a pattern, or through self-awareness that you could share?
Honestly, I guess like for right now, it's like what you say. I feel like that's a constant like issue. There's a verse in the Bible that says like, out of the abundance of the heart your mouth will speak. So whatever is like inside your heart, like your mouth, it ends up coming out. in the way you talk. So if I'm constantly like pouring in, I don't know, like music that's constantly like degrading, I'm gonna start speaking that over people. I'm gonna start like degrading other people.
Yeah.
So I try to be mindful of like what I listen to, because, or even read, or whoever is talking to me, because if it's not uplifting and it's degrading, then eventually it's gonna get inside of me, and I'm gonna start speaking that over other people and whatnot. So that's probably one way. Like for me, I hardly ever listen to secular music now.
Dang.
And if I do, it's like in the gym, or it's like in a communal setting. But like if I were in my car right now by myself, I would play like worship music.
Yeah.
Or something that's a lot more uplifting than something that's like rap. And as an example, that could be like degrading about women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I don't want to speak that over other women if I'm talking to them. So yeah.
That's so challenging because you're brown. I know you like groovy music.
Yeah, no, dude, I would be lying if I say like I don't listen to that.
Yeah, and it's like, actually, I think that's one of my challenges is not listening to music that could mess up my subconscious, because you know, there's just so much science. It's like if you constantly hear all these bad things, these bad messages, it's going to normalize in your brain, and then you're going to see it happen. You're going to think that's okay. It's okay to disrespect people in this way. It's okay to call this person this. And like, I see it because I could just see it in myself sometimes. And I won't let someone talk to me that way, but I would listen to it in a song. It's just, that's a hard one to give up. So I give you props to having that kind of discipline.
Yeah, because you just catch it, you know, like you just start seeing it and it just comes like second nature to you. The more you feed yourself it, the more it just comes like in your nature, like subconsciously, like you said. And you're like, whoa, that's not usually like me. Why did that just come out so easily? Well, when did it start? When did it begin? So
yeah, I was feeling that this morning with music, just the power and significance of music. Like, it's no shock that people are so hopeless and depressed and moralless when the most popular artists are depressed, moralless, hopeless. Like, celebrities are killing themselves right now, and we're still allowing the same kind of artists to fill our minds. It's no shock. No one wants to make the sacrifice because it's immediate gratification. But if something were to harm those you love, wouldn't you be so against it? And I'm not there yet, but I feel like I'm gonna get there soon. It's just, I really like secular music. But it's unfortunate. Like, come on, guys. Like, these artists are, they already have all the money, all the success that they could have. Why can't they just be a little bit classy?
that just shows you can have all the physical stuff in the world, but if you don't handle your mental, or your spiritual, self, it's never enough. That's just an example.
yeah And it's really heartbreaking because I've studied so many like rich and successful people, and it's really just, they're good at what they do. Like, they make money and they're good at what they do, and what you can learn from them is the quality of your own life really matters. Like, the circle of the people that you have, the people that you love, that really matters. Like, make them quality and strive to be successful. Work really hard, but don't expect that to make everything better, make you all happy, because you'll have all the money and be like, all right, well, what to do now? Like, no, have a vision and dream. If you were to have $1 million, what would you do with it? You'll spend not maybe like 5 million. What would you do with it? You'd spend a certain portion on necessity and then a certain portion on pleasure. But like, don't you want to give back and support a bigger cause? Because it's just, money just enhances who you already are. So it'll say a lot about you.
Exactly. And I feel like when you do have a lot of money like that, might as well just give it back. Like, there's so much to give. And if anything, like, the more you give, it's not like you're expecting to receive anything, but the more you give, you do end up receiving. Like, it always comes back to you in some way. It doesn't even always have to be monetary. It can be through like people. Or just like the little blessings,
That's what my dad always says. And sometimes I'm like, you're being too generous. But he's like, the more you're generous, you will be blessed. And that's just a principle. Like, if you can give, you never know how much it'll help someone, how much just that act of kindness will change their heart posture to give them hope in humanity.
Exactly.
That's the power of generosity. You never know what it can do, like even when it doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
It's a principle.
Yeah, be a blessing. Receive a blessing, be a blessing.
Yep.
So good.
Let's see.
That was good.
Good stuff.
That's good stuff.
That was good stuff. Should we work out now?
Let's go work out.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. I hope this podcast helped you elevate. Give Keilani a follow on her social media platforms because she'll be releasing some amazing projects. And she's very intentional with social media. So she's always just spreading love and light and encouraging people there. And then she also has something that I just signed up for, but basically you text me.
Oh yeah, I do daily text messages that you can find in my bio on Instagram, where you basically just sign up and I send you a text every day.
Yeah, they're super cool, and they're like at random times, so they're just perfect for that pick me up. So everyone should sign up for those. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great day. Goodbye.